Hi, I'm Terry Smith, Technical Manager of the AAF. Welcome to the third presentation in the Upgrading to IdPv3 series. In this presentation, we'll be preparing a server that will become your new IDP. Before we begin, we will do a quick walkthrough of the IDP that is to be upgraded. As part of the walkthrough, we will take a snapshot of my current attributes. This will be used later to verify that the new IDP is sending the same attributes. Changes to attribute values, particularly those used as identifiers such as the EduPerson targeted ID and the AU EduPerson shared token, can have significant consequences for users and support. We will use the attribute validator for the walkthrough. It allows us to capture the attributes sent by the IDP so we can compare them later. At the Attribute Validator, we select the Show Me My Attributes option. This takes me to the AAF Discovery Service. At the Discovery Service, we select our IDP. For this demo, we'll be using the ZZZ AAF Migration Demo IDP. Here we find an AAF branded IDP. It tells us the name of the service we're logging into. It has the usual username and password boxes, a login button, an option to clear my previous attribute release consent decisions, some support links, and logos at the bottom of the page. I'll enter my username and password, then log in. As this is the first time I have visited this service, I am asked to consent to the release of my attributes. As you can see, this page has not been branded with my organisation's colours, fonts or logos. In addition, the attribute names are a bit technical and could be improved upon. We will attend to these things as part of the migration. Accepting the release of my personal data, we move on to the attribute validator. The attribute validator shows all of the attributes released by the IDP. All of them are looking good. If we scroll to the bottom of the page, we can export the current snapshot to a PDF file for reviewing later. There are a number of requirements for your new server. The first is the operating system. We have limited them to CentOS 7 or Red Hat 7, even though the Shibboleth IDP can run on a much wider range of OS versions. We have deliberately kept this option small to reduce our effort in maintaining the AAF installer that wraps around the Shibboleth software. We have also selected these OSs because of the large number of universities that use them. We expect that the Oracle Linux will also work as well, but are unable to verify at the moment. The CPU, memory and storage requirements can be found on the requirements checklist page. These are only recommendations and should ensure your IDP will operate effectively. If you are planning to use your IDP for more than just federation authentication, for example for your university internal IDP, you will need to consider increasing these minimum spec values. As the IDP is a Java app, more memory may be required first. The AAF installer requires a number of packages from the EPEL package library set. If you are using Satellite for your server package management, you may need to discuss this requirement with your systems administrators. You must also be able to execute commands as root. The installer is installing and configuring an entire server to operate as an IDP. It needs to be root to do this. The new IDP must be able to communicate with the outside world and be able to respond to requests from the outside. Most IT security have an issue with port 8443, as it is not a standard port. This port, however, provides a secure way for a service provider to communicate directly with an IDP. It is over SSL and uses PKI authentication to ensure only Federation services providers can access the IDP via this port. For more details on server requirements, please check out the link at the bottom of the page. The migration of the ZZZ AAF migration demo IDP will be using a server provided by the Nectar Research Cloud. As this is an upgrade rather than a fresh install, much of the information you require for your new IDP will be available from your existing IDP. You will need to access your existing IDP, probably as root. Finally, on your new server, you need to add an entry into etc. hosts, so the new IDP thinks it has the DNS name of your IDP mapping to the IP address of your new server. You also need to ensure your new IDP can access your directory server. On our new IDP server, we can see that it is a Nectar box and it's running CentOS Linux 7. We need to edit the etc. host file, adding the IP address of the server and the DNS name of the IDP. This is only temporary and should be removed after the IDP goes live. Let's find the IDP address of this server. Copying the IP address, we'll now edit the etc. host file. To do this, we need to be root. We'll add the entry now. We need to add the IP address, DNS name, which is idp.demo.aaf.edu.au, and we'll save that away. All done. It is now time to run the installer to create the base IDP. First we download the Bootstrap script, then modify it for your organization, and finally run the script. Back at our new server, we run the command to download the installer Bootstrap script. This creates the file bootstrap.sh, which we must now edit. Editing the Bootstrap file, we find that the top of the file contains the variables that you must modify. Working through these, we start with the host name. Replace the example host name with the host name of your current IDP. Remember to remove the hash comment marker at the start of the line. Next, we set the environment to either test or production. The demo IDP is in the test environment. Set your organization name. This is the display name of your organization. This should be the same as the O attribute shown in your attribute validation report. Set the org base domain. This should be the same again as the shack organization value that is in your report. Now for the organization type. Same again as the organization type that's on your report. Next is the attribute used to calculate the shared token value. You'll find the value currently used by your IDP in the attribute resolver.xml file. Search for the shared token data connector, then copy the source attribute ID to the Bootstrap script. For the demo IDP, it is UID, which is already the default value. This removes the hashtag. Now, finally, for the LDAP details. These can be found in the file login config file on your old IDP. And finally, the attribute used to query the directory for your user information, which is again UID. That done, we're ready to save the file. It is now time to run the installer. This will install, configure and start the new IDP. It will take several minutes to run and will output logging information as it progresses. Note, you must be root to run the installer. That's it. The installer has done its work. If there were any problems running the installer, you can review the logs at /opt/shibboleth-idp-installer/activity.log. Any issues will generally be related to the changes you have made to the Bootstrap script. If you are having difficulties with the installer, feel free to contact us at support@aaf.edu.au. When the installer completes successfully, you'll have a functioning IDP running on your server. The installer will have output some instructions to complete the install. These can be ignored as we are doing an upgrade rather than an install. We are now ready to perform our first test of the new IDP. We must prepare our laptop or desktop so it will use the new IDP. This is done by adding a temporary entry to the etc. host file. We visit the attributes validator again, I've added an entry to the etc. hosts on my laptop for the new IDP. So I can now go back to the attribute validator, click on the show me my attributes button and select the AAF demo IDP. This time I receive an invalid certificate pop-up. This is because the new IDP is using a self-signed certificate. This will be fixed when we migrate the server certificate across from the old IDP. We'll click through to continue. We now see the default unbranded login page for my new IDP. I'll enter my credentials to log in. You'll be asked to consent to the release of your attributes. You may notice that there are more options in this version of the consent page. Accept and you are sent back to the attribute validator, which responds with a message about the message being signed but the signature not being verified. This will be resolved once we add the IDP certificates into the Federation registry, which we will do in the next presentation. Now that all the hard work's done, the rest is just migration of configuration and branding information. In the next presentation, we will migrate configuration and data from your old IDP and add the missing certificates to the Federation registry. We will then have a fully operational IDP that only requires branding to be added.